There we go. It might ask you each to agree. And yeah, we do these. We tend inside the community, we're far more immersive. We invite comments. We roll up our sleeves. Anyone who's been in one of our summits, hey Brady, how are you, man? Brady was just in our summit. So were you, Brian? You know that you won't fall asleep. So here's Richard. Okay, great. All right, we'll just give this a few more secs. We have a cast of thousands registered, but again, you never know who's going to show up and who just wants to make sure they get the recording. So Richard, welcome. All right, and everybody's muted on entry. I will ask as a housekeeping matter that you remain muted. We're gonna do a full Q&A at the end. So we'll give this another few secs and then we'll get rolling. John Bettery. Excellent. Hey, good morning, John. Good to see you. All right, I'm going to let people keep rolling in. But we're going to get rolling, guys. You're here on time. So we're already recording. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right, well, welcome everyone. I'm going to move our pictures out of the way. And all right. Welcome, everyone. My name is George Salmon. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. Growth Drive is the #1 best-selling business advising platform, and we've gathered today to talk about business growth and continuity planning, which is the whole name that we apply to our risk analysis module. And it's a new module. We just released it to the market. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a few minutes putting it in context. Now, luckily, we are in the process of releasing our new C3D certification in the 3 dimensions of business growth. And it's a course that is committed to teaching the methodology and process for making profit and value growth actionable. Okay. It's going to be coming out real soon. And this, candidly, this presentation, this conversation is lifted straight out of class number 4, which is about collaboration, with which I collaborated with my good friend, Mike Garrison, author of Can I Borrow Your Car? Okay. And Larry, who's on this call, is one of the faculty members on this course. So here we go. I'm going to give a nod to our strategic ally, the Business Enterprise Institute. We work with all sorts of exit planners, and we have a very close relationship with BEI in particular. A lot of SEPAs in our community, a lot of CBECs, but BEI is an innovator. BEI is about a lot more than simply training. They have a terrific training program, one of which is called owner-based planning. If you're not aware of it, in the course, they've given it an evolution, much as we've done with our certification with C3D. And it's the link between our 2 communities, okay? So that, I just given them a nod because they actually inspired this work. And there were a lot of CEXPs joining the Growth Drive community. Now, in the C3D class, we talk about collaboration, and it's a full hour-long module. Today, we're going to focus in on COIs and business development, because that is one of the reasons that this continuity risk module has seen the light of day. And you know about the importance of collaboration. What we really want to get into is a symbiotic relationship between advisors. And we advocate, and a lot of you have created or are creating what I call strategic COIs, people with whom you collaborate on an ongoing basis, where you and they understand exactly where you play in the world, what value you bring to the table, what value they bring to the table. And we're going to get into it a little bit more detail, because one of the things that business advisors can do is collaborate with centers of influence for business development. Now, this is all goes to the client's good. Growth Drive's vision is to help $1 trillion of private businesses increase strategic capacity in the 3 dimensions of business growth. And if we're going to increase strategic capacity, the implication is that we're going to get involved in doing. All right. I mean, remember that. I'm going to drill down a little bit. And our community, and out there in the world generally, there are really 5 layers. Are you a 1 or a 5? It's one of our shorthands. It comes from a gentleman who's become a good friend and colleague Francis Brown, currently with Brown Advisory. Are you a 1 or a 5? You may recognize this out in the world. You have people who are involved in talking to clients or working with clients, and they're in a spectrum. A 1 is a talker. Let's use exit planning as our stalking horse. You're going to talk to your client about exit planning. Have you considered what you're going to do with your business, what it needs to deliver for you? You might be an educator, right? So now you're going to educate your clients about different exit paths, the impact that will have on their legacy, on their wealth, on their stakeholders, et cetera. You're going to educate them, but you may not be involved in doing things like being an architect, which is the game, which is writing the plan, creating the blueprint. How do we take this business as an asset and what would the redesign look like so that it can deliver our client's intent? General contractors take the plan and turn it into reality. Those are distinguished from subject matter experts. So a general contractor, right, they don't carry a hammer or a wrench. They carry a cell phone and they make sure that things get done. That is the advisory role. And then we also have a lot of fractional players, fractional CFOs mostly. So are you a 1 or a 5? Most of the people in our community, most of you are senior professionals who are 2s, 3s, and 4s. I want to talk about collaboration, business continuity planning, protecting cash, using this conversation we're about to jump into. So a COI is a center of influence. We use that term a lot. It's an individual or group with the ability to connect professionals, right? Who has that Rolodex? And we're not going to get into qualifying them right now. That's in the C3D course. But in our world, in the Growth Drive community, the COIs tend to be wealth advisors, exit planning, wealth and insurance advisors, business attorneys. We have a lot of investment bankers, a growing cohort of investment bankers, commercial bankers, and others. So one of the challenges, and it was Mike Garrison, who I mentioned earlier, who put it on me. He called, I'll be polite, BS. Because we've been operating as business advisors under the misimpression that while we hope that wealth advisors will open up their doors and introduce us to their best clients, that we're not really able to return the favor. Well, baloney, right? We want to get, we have to give. And this is a community of net givers. And you all know it. There are very few takers. Takers just tend not to survive and thrive in the market. We are net givers. So I see a chat. I'm just going to jump on it. Thank you, Greg. Hey, man, good to see you. Tax, legal, wealth pros and specific subject matter experts, SMEs. You're absolutely right. So you got to give to get, guys. And we can't sit back and expect to get referrals if we're not going to give it referrals. And you need to start seeing yourself, if you're a business advisor, as a COI, right? You're a center of influence to those wealth advisors, business lawyers, et cetera. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to be referable. You need to have a good reputation and trust. And in this community, we are essentially all senior professionals with an average of 3.7 credentials, 30 years of experience out there. I know there are a couple, Brady, I see you, man. A couple of people who are earning their stripes, but who are incredibly intelligent and definitely are able to hang in this community. So how do we become referable and how do we deliver value? And why aren't we getting referred? Told this story a couple of times, maybe a lot of times. I was in Denver at the BEI conference, annual conference. We led a full day workshop on these types of topics. It was fantastic. And if you've ever been in one of my workshops, they're fairly intense. They're high paced. And at one point I said, we're talking about increasing strategic capacity in the 3 dimensions of business growth. This is a room full of by and large wealth advisors and 32 folks. I said, and who doesn't want to, bring a business advisor in to help their clients increase value? I put my hand up. That's a softball. This is called a visual cue in facilitation. I got 2 hands came up. We stopped. I'm like, whoa. Hold on. What do you mean you're not interested? And the bottom line was, and we workshopped it for a little bit, and that business advisors have a reputation, probably earned, for geeking up, I'm being polite, in engagements. So that caused us to come up with the advisor pledge. And this is a pledge that I know everyone in this community essentially lives, but here are the three parts to the pledge. It's very simple. It's part of the C3D certification. We're going to honor your existing relationship. So imagine you're a business advisor. You want to work with a wealth advisor, and you can get that first meeting, but you're not sure why it's not moving forward. It's not moving forward for a couple of reasons, one of which might be they're not sure what you're going to do, how you're going to behave. If they lend you their car, is it going to come back with a tank full of gas and a wash, or is it going to come back with spilled popcorn in the back seat and some unexplained dent in the fender, right? We're going to honor your relationships. We understand that it's your client, and something as business advisors, I know I'm getting to the punchline. The wealth advisor has an immortal relationship with a client that goes beyond the transaction. By the time a business sells as business advisors, we're typically ejected, okay? We're going to coordinate privately. We're never going to make you look bad in front of the client. If we have a disagreement, we're going to take it offline, and we're going to communicate openly. You will always know what's going on. You're going to be copied on emails. You're going to be invited to meetings. We are going to take good care of your client, and you'll know what the heck is going on. And my argument for wealth advisors taking C3D, and many of you have participated in our training and certification in the past, is you want to be able to hang in this conversation. How do we leverage, here's the punchline, this is why you all came, how do we leverage the clarity, our online strategic capacity, and business value analysis to promote collaboration? And there are a number of different ways, okay? Now, Clarity has a series of modules that are designed for everything from lead generation through the execution phase of strategic doing, okay? We're going to zero in on two modules. How do we collaborate? Imagine a wealth advisor and a business advisor. We need each other, right? How do we collaborate? How do we facilitate it? One, inside Clarity Level 1, I'm about to show it to you, there's an equity value planner. I know what your business is worth today. Will that business have sufficient value, net value, to fund the client's long-term personal wealth plan? How much will it need to grow? I won't even get into simulator, but how much may we need to grow the business? I'll show you how that plays out, okay? We need to create an understanding of today's transferable value. That's the price you're going to get in an M&A or similar transaction or in an internal transfer, and figure out if that's sufficient. So imagine sitting with a COI, having the ability to demystify, to clear up a fairy tale. Because clients believe that they can work for as long as they want, sell the business for what they need to get, and then ride off into the sunset. Many of you are maybe laughing behind your muted microphones. That essentially never is the case. Now, we can help make it the case, and we can't wag our finger at the client and say, no, you're wrong. The client needs to hear themselves say, hey, I don't think I have the value. They need to understand why the business may not have the value. The other place, now, when we talk, I'm going to go back a slide. When we talk about equity value planning, we're talking about 5 years, and we're talking about the very real, but, often repeated assets under management part of the value that a client may have to a wealth advisor, right? Rather than the long ball, what if we focused on the short ball? And focusing on the short ball, things that are going to happen, act one, scene one, day one in an engagement is what the continuity risk analysis is designed to do. There are a lot of external risks to a business, and risk analysis is designed to surface them and to power a conversation. This is all about educating clients and powering a conversation. Now, as a business advisor, imagine we're about to look at it. You're having a conversation with a business owner that goes along these lines. Hey, and by the way, are you working with a wealth advisor? Yes, I am. Who are you working with? Oh, I'm working with Frank over at UBS. Frank's a great guy. I know Frank. In fact, Frank and I played in a charity tourney, golf tourney last week. Great guy. I know him. Hey, has Frank ever talked to you about the value of your business? How much of that value can go to fund your wealth? Has Frank ever talked to you about XYZ? No? Well, let's have a conversation. And I know Jane, and Jane specializes, she's not trying to take business from Frank, but she specializes in in very sophisticated planning that is designed to help make sure that the business satisfies your wealth goals. Would you be willing to have a conversation with them? Yes, I would. Great. It's free, etc. How do we disrupt lazy relationships? Because as a business advisor, that's what we need to do. If a wealth advisor doesn't have this conversation, it is bad for the client, it is bad for the market, and it is not going to help us all increase strategic capacity for $1 trillion worth of businesses. We need to disrupt those relationships. And I'm happy to say, let's do it, because these conversations need to happen. Now the main event. Jump into business growth and continuity planning. I've teased out at the equity value planning module. What we want to get into is in helping the client understand the power of advanced wealth planning. And those of you who are working with more sophisticated RIAs or wirehouses, you have entire legal teams, entire accounting teams that can help create sophisticated compensation plans. And we're gonna dive in. So we want to uncover advanced wealth planning, sophisticated compensation, and insurance product opportunities that are going to help, one, ensure continuity, succession planning, and de-risk the business today, so that the wealth advisor and insurance advisor has a what's in it for them at the beginning of the engagement. We want to make sure that we as a collaborative team are relevant and impactful to this private business over the long term, from the very beginning through when we jump out of the aircraft and the aircraft keeps going on into the sunset. So the connector between our worlds is effective senior leadership. And in our deep dive, we get into analyzing succession planning, owner dependence, and more. If you want to learn more about that, I'll let you know how to reach us. But let's jump in and take a peek. Okay, guys, I wanted to make sure that we have some context for why we developed the risk management module, how it fits into our engagement with a client, our relationship with other advisors in our circle, right? Our collaborative COIs, our strategic COIs. I say strategic because we together have something, we're doing something bigger together. We're not simply shaking hands and passing in the night. We are actually creating a long-term, mutually beneficial relationship through which our clients benefit XX, okay? So let's jump right into the tool. Here I am. You can see I'm in growth-capacity.com. I've logged into the system, the miracle of technology. And those of you who haven't seen it, I'm in our teaching case, Ridge Specialty Tooling. It's the case that supports our C3D certification and a lot else of other things we do. And we've talked to them. You want a demo? We're happy to help. Plenty of videos online. So we've done this first analysis. We have the range of values report, and we're having a conversation, hey, Jane, picking on the name Jane today. Hey, Jane, you've built an asset worth $30 million. Jane has just heard herself say that she is not top of the charts in most, all of the 24 growth driving objectives. Here, we're in the first initial analysis. This is client discovery. What is client discovery designed to do? It's designed for us to qualify a client. But to my mind, it's designed to educate the client about what we bring to the table and why the heck they would continue to talk to us. And in fact, to buy our expertise, our products, our services. Jane, listen, based on the fact that you've got holes in you don't have high strategic capacity, you could only monetize 18 million of that $30 million asset, meaning that private equity or someone else is going to take 12.6 of your money and put it in their pocket. That's the way the world works, by the way. We're talking here about company-specific risk and how this business would look to the private capital markets, right? Cool. Okay. We got these value numbers. Just going to jump into the equity value planner. Hey, Jane. Okay, well, what do you need how much income do you need to replace? I've got a $54 million company. I want to take $100,000 a month off the table, etc. We do a build up. Greg is very familiar with these. Thank you, Greg. Bottom line, we want to help them understand that they don't have to grow from 54 million to 140 or 142 and a half. What they need to do is increase strategic capacity, the quality of their business. Watch this number. We're going to take their multiple. There's the range of multiples for their industry. We're going to take that multiple up to 5. And hey, now we have to grow from 54 to 85 over 5 years, not even doubling. Now imagine you're a business advisor and a wealth advisor sitting at the table, leading this discussion with the client. The client, I assure you, has never had a conversation like this. Okay, well, that's how much we're going to need to grow the business. How do we make sure that we do it in a environment where we've mitigated external risks? Risk management. Now, I'm going to slow it down. Here we are in risk management. Guys, this is commercial Rev 1, just published to the market. This was designed in collaboration with a variety of members of our communities, wealth advisors, insurance advisors, business advisors. We want to lead a conversation. We're starting to draw numbers from other modules. This comes from that risk. This is why I showed you the range of values. Here's our range of values top number. Here's the combined coverage of my buy-sell insurance. Here's the surplus or insufficiency. Personal life insurance, required portfolio value, comes out of equity value planner, current coverage, surplus or deficiency, personal disability. As my wealth advisor said to me, hey, you're far more likely to get broken than to get killed. And this is often the case, surplus or insufficiency. By the way, if you have comments, you see ways we can improve this, shoot me a note. Those of you who have worked with me know that it'll show up. If it's a good idea, a good suggestion, it'll show up in the tool relatively quickly. Relatively quickly in our world is within days. Okay. Had a little insurance conversation. Cool. Now we want to look at, and this is, guys, this is a 30,000, 40,000 foot look. Those of you who are in this business have much more in-depth discovery tools. I'm simply trying to help business advisors and wealth advisors working together educate the client on these topics. So go slowly, more slowly. You have a written plan to which your business goals support your personal wealth and legacy goals. You have a formal succession plan for yourself. You have buy-sell agreements with all your partners with current adequate funding. Goes to the question above. Have you taken legal measures to protect and transfer your wealth? If you're a wealth advisor, and by the way, if you're a business advisor and aren't clear on this stuff, call a wealth advisor and sit down with them and go through this continuity model. I'll email you a PDF and ask them why this all meshes in with their world. These are pieces of a puzzle. You regularly review and update your insurance coverages. A lot of us are guilty of just letting them ride. Now, the heart of the matter, the senior leadership team. You have a succession plan in place for each of your senior leadership team. Now, if we went back to look at level 2 and the execute guidance module, they're up here, right? We got level 2, execute guidance, leadership report. There's a lot in here. Stay high level. You have key person insurance to protect. Some companies might think this is a good idea. Others say, not going to bother. You have structured compensation plans. We're trying to uncover and to educate the client about the concept of non-qualified deferred compensation. That protects cash, right? It also nails people's feet to the floor. It also de-risks. It's a stick for if they leave to make sure that they behave well for a period of time, right? All right. You want to violate your non-compete, non-raid. First, you're going to get a letter from my attorney. But before I even send that letter, you're non-qualified, you're deferred comp. We're going to draw a line through it. You have retirement plans in place for yourself and your employees. That's a best practice. Would you not agree? And you have competitive employee benefits and plans to continue to meet and exceed market norms. We want to uncover, again here, this succession planning. I'm going to drill down on it. This is a fantastic opportunity for a more sophisticated compensation, right? Non-qualified deferred comp, stock appreciation rights, phantom equity, and more. There are also opportunities to use insurance. And let me illustrate. Let's look at a case. My CFO leaves, retires, make it nice, retires, long, successful career, retires. I need to replace my CFO. The best person, do I want the best person who's here in town, or do I want to hire that crackerjack CFO from Chicago? I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, who I met at that conference, who I thought was fantastic. We hit it off. I want to hire her. Now, what's the problem? Well, she has a job. Maybe she has non-qualified deferred comp, or maybe she has some equity in that business. She's going to need to relocate, buy a house, sell a house, get everything on a truck. I mean, there's a big expense there. You know what there is? There's insurance for that. There's inexpensive insurance for that. We can insure the succession plan so that we don't hit cash. The other thing that we can help business owners understand, and this goes to owner-based planning, guys. I'm not teaching the class. Go to BEI, ask them about the course. We protect future cash. If you sit down with a CEO and ask them, and really lean into the conversation, ask them about how they feel, use that word, about writing bonus checks at the end of the year, you are going to hear some version of, I love it, but I hate it, right? And if you lean into the I hate it part, it's not that they mind compensating people for a job well done. It's the expectation and the uncertainty. And if we have a down year, then that really comes out disproportionately out of my pocket, et cetera, et cetera. What if we use other compensation to make sure our people are happy, rewarded? Again, equity without voting rights. There is a ton in here that we can educate our client about protecting cash flow. All right, I think if all else fails, we'll whip the horse's eyes. I just did. All right, beat that horse to death. Third area, 5 questions. Business. Part of your risk management planning, you have quantified the market and credit risks. You have written goals specifying the time and value for the successful transition of your business ownership. If you don't hear exit planning, you should. You know the current value of your business. Now, we've just done a calculation of value, and clarity meets the calculation of value standards as set forth by the ASA, the NACBA, and the AICPA as a calculation of value. I have another question in chat. Can you clarify what you mean by market and credit risks? Greg, that's a very much longer conversation. I'd love to take it offline. But yes, threw me off my game. Let's come back to that, Greg. Thank you. You know the current value of your business. The calculation of value is not a formal valuation. As an aside, formal valuations are done for a number of purposes. Those purposes could include divorce. That is going to be a very different calculation of value than one that's done in anticipation of a transaction. So formal valuation, we need to understand the context. Your strategic planning considers, any fractional CFOs on this call, capitalization. And actually, I had Brady, you were on the call. We actually started laughing because a lot of CEOs don't really, truly, clearly understand what capitalization means. Here's another opportunity to collaborate. And you have protected, this is a big one. I've lived this one. You've protected your operating capital and business debt from the risk caused if you are no longer able to work. Humming along, you borrow $2.5 million, you buy a bunch of machines, you've got some paper, commercial paper on that, that's great. You get hit by a bus. Your business is very heavily dependent on ownership. You have not really focused on the fact that you put your home up as collateral on a lot of these business debts. That call from the bank is coming to your bereaved spouse. They're going to say, yeah, hi. I mean, we don't want the equipment back, but we do understand selling your home. We need our money. There's insurance for that, okay? This is an ugly phone call to get. So I hope you're hearing that there are a number of different places where you can start a conversation with your client. You can start a conversation with your client that is actually going to discover opportunities here at the beginning of the engagement. We're in clarity level 1, right? We're in the beginning discovery phase of the engagement, which is a what's in it for me. for wealth and insurance advisors, also for attorneys, fractional CFOs. There's a ton of collaborative work to be done in here. Now, I'm going to click on report. What do we get? It's very simple. We still have our insurance conversation up here at the top, and we issue a grade. Personal, you're a B. Your team, you're a D. Business, a D. And it's very straightforward, guys. As you look at the report, what's the risk impact? It's on your personal life. It's on your team. What are we protecting here? Long-term goals, leadership compensation, etc. What's the best practice? These are the questions, and here are your client's answers. And here they are in living color, mostly false and no. And that's, I don't know how else to explain it. We're just laying it on the table and saying, okay, you might want to give this some thought. If I had a wealth advisor here, if I had one of our Larry or Greg or Peter, any one of the guys who are top flight wealth advisors in our community, I'm just thinking a few of you guys off the top of my head. This is a conversation they can lead 6 ways to Sunday. In fact, I would shut up and let them take the ball. You're doing a lot of good here. And imagine if you've run this one-on-one, business advisors, right? You've run this one-on-one with a client. And you're like, listen, I don't really, this is not my area of expertise, but I have a friend, going to go back to Jane. I'm going to have her read the tea leaves. And maybe if you want to have a conversation with a pro in this area, be happy to facilitate. Remember, a referral is simply an introduction, right? You're not selling Jane's services. We simply want to have a good, qualified basis to make an introduction. Would you agree that using the equity value planner and this business growth and continuity risk analysis is a great way to make a qualified introduction to your strategic COI? And if you agree, and so I'm going to get to the chats in a sec. Move that to the bottom. Okay, guys, you're going to have questions about this and we can jump back into it. So I want to just close before we go to questions by saying, imagine I just showed you clarity level 1. That's 25 questions. It's 24 questions in the 3 dimensions of growth, plus a bonus question that's critically important. Have you considered how the strength of the market impacts the value of your business? Up economy, frothy times, just think 18, 24 months ago, you can sell businesses that had some problems at a higher multiple. Right now, things are tighter, a little more pessimism. You're still seeing good deal flow, but it's harder to take a business to market, and due diligence is going to be even perhaps a little more strict. We have a tool called the CEO Workshop Marketing Event. Imagine using Clarity Level 1, the 24 questions, the range of values. Okay, everybody, look at your screens. Here's what your business is worth. Here's how much the price you'd see in the market. That value gap is the ROI from taking action. Imagine using the equity value planner. I have personally done this with Vistage groups, with groups of CEOs. Vistage groups are great because they all know each other. Groups of strangers, it takes a little bit to warm up, but it works beautifully. Imagine running a workshop like that. Imagine sitting down with your business advisor and sitting down with a wealth advisor and saying, hey, what if we go through your Rolodex? We select a cohort of qualified, non-competing business owning clients, and we put on a workshop. And in that workshop, we are going to highlight the value of their largest asset. So imagine how this changes the perception of you as the wealth advisor. And oh, by the way, we're going to talk about future value, and we can use the risk module to uncover opportunities and have you talking about protecting succession planning, nailing people's feet to the floor, protecting cash, and more. Do you think it would be worthwhile to have that workshop? By the way, I've done that with National Wirehouse. We're going to be putting on our first workshop. I've done a lot of these. Many of you have as well. They are a home run. You get 10 or 12 CEOs in the room, and I promise you got to do your job, right? You got to deliver well. And you guys are senior pros. I promise you will get an engagement out of it. A good, the engagement you're looking for. Cool. Now I'll open it up to questions. I did enough talking. We are 35 minutes in. Got some in the chat. So Larry Prince, Greg, well, I want to circle back around by market and credit risks. It's a more complicated answer. Larry Prince looks like we use the risk management survey without completing the equity planning tool. Just won't have the risk analyzer. Yeah, that's correct. This is, Larry, that's a great observation. So this is not a franchise, right? You can use the modules. We know the effective path, the most effective path that's been reported back by your colleagues, but you do not have to run them in that order. If you don't use Equity Planner first, you won't have those numbers in the, it's actually going to come up. There's a pop-up that says, please complete Equity Plan. All right. Take a breath. If you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, jump in. I'm happy to help. Somebody cleared their throat.
Hey, it's Greg here. I don't have a question. I do have a couple comments.
Yeah, Greg, jump in. Hey, man, good to have you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So this is the spot I live in. So I have these conversations all day. I love the tool. I would say that you don't have to disrupt the relationship. What'll happen is by walking them through this, the owner will get educated and it'll be an obvious conversation. Oh, you have some, okay, have they talked to you about this? Have they talked to you about this? Have they talked to you about this? 9 times out of 10, if they have a wealth advisor, they know once they have a little education that they're not the right person. But the goal is to get them educated that you could go back to that person and get that owner better able to have a conversation. Like we bring them into our planning meetings, but more often than not, when they don't have the right person, they'll be like, my guy hasn't, ever talked to me about that. Listen, I don't want to disrupt the relationship that you have, as long as they have the resources. A lot of these big wirehouses, even if your guy is not the expert in all this, they have 3 floors of people who are. So as long as you get the resources, doesn't matter. Well, do you know anybody? Yeah, I do. So, I can also introduce you. So it's not as in the face, I think, as, George was doing it every time, in your little role play, like where you have to tee up, I got somebody else, and they'll come to you with it. Because just reality is 9 times out of 10, these business owners are way below the planning levels that they need, tax legal wealth, for their level of success. And their business is their best asset. So they've been ignoring the calls of these other professionals for years and just doubling down on the ROI that they get out of cash flow and any other form of, success or comp that they value. The equity planner is the connector that gets them to act. It's been my experience that when you connect their desired cash flow lifestyle with or without the business, meaning if we build the business correctly, you could make working in it optional and they could still pull that $1.2 million, $100,000 a month in your example, George, out of it. Or if life throws them a curveball, or we get the unsolicited phone call and the timing is right, and you could sell it for enough to walk away and net what you need to net. Once they realize the business owner math of that, which is if we work on the health of the business, the multiple goes up. It's not just growing revenue. Your example, I don't have to go to 150 million. I could go from 54 to 80, which is not a big jump for a business of that size. Once the light bulb goes off for the business owner on what I call business owner math, it's about the multiplication, the multiples, not the addition, adding $1 of revenue profit. And they see how quickly you could bridge a gap. Value could grow with a hockey stick. Revenue can grow at a normal pace that they feel super confident in. That's when they start connecting the dots to, okay, I'm adding $30 million or whatever, $100 million, whatever that number was of taxable gain, in your Ridge example there. Like, when do you want to deal with that? There's a different set of playbooks for people like you. Have your advisors talked to you about this stuff? There's a lot. And if you tee it up there and then go straight into this risk assessment, let's talk about that. Let me give you a framework that you could use to go back to your advisors to have a conversation that's a little more guided, for you to be able to ask better questions to get what you want. And what'll happen in that conversation is they'll find out that my guy or gal is not the right guy or gal. And do you know somebody else that you could refer me to? That's been my experience most of the time, unless we get a lot of businesses referred to us by wealth managers. In that case, those are the right people because they're already proactively bringing the business owner into this collaborative conversation. But if we find them other ways, usually they don't have the right tax legal wealth team.
You're making a couple of great points, Greg, and I was pretty aggressive in the way I described it. And there's a flip side to that coin, and I think you just highlighted it. They made a couple of really great points. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Greg is, I would say, is probably the thought leader on this equity value planning area. So Greg Maddox with Cultivate Advisors. Thanks, Greg. And your point's a good one because if I flip that on the way that my aggressiveness on its head, say, well, hey, why don't we sit down with your current wealth advisor and have this conversation? Because you're right, they do have access to 3 floors of people. So do we want to potentially create a new COI? If that doesn't play out, do we want to be able to refer in our existing wealth advising relationship? And that's all for the good. At the end of the day, it's making sure that the client gets the help they need.
And both of those have happened. It's normal. I've had it where the wealth manager brought the client, we built into their workflow, hey, we're going to be doing all this stuff on the business, but you got to be working with the wealth manager on your tax legal wealth thing. You have to have a plan in place by the end of the quarter kind of thing, not executed all the way, but have agreed upon the plan of action that you guys want to take. And the wealth manager brought in an estate planning attorney who, for whatever reason, didn't really want to do any planning. He didn't believe that these people had an estate tax problem yet, didn't believe that the business was going to continue growing the way it has. And in his worldview, if you don't have an estate tax problem, I don't do any fancy planning. And I'm like, well, what about asset protection? What about income tax reduction? What about transfer planning? What about a million other things? And so this guy's worldview was just like, no, he's not an atypical estate planner that if you already have an estate above the current high limits combined for married people, then I'll open up my book of tricks. But until then, you don't qualify in my mind. So in that case, we went back to the wealth manager because it was his tag in and like, hey, this guy is just not wanting to do any planning. Mr. Wealth Manager, are you okay with me introducing somebody else that will do the planning? So you go back to the COI and now he's got this other guy in his pocket. Now we're doing that planning, a very robust asset protection tax estate plan, which leads to a lot of work for him as the wealth manager.
Absolutely.
And of course, this attorney and their team will now be part of the team on an ongoing basis because the ongoing maintenance and basically building a virtual family office structure for these guys.
I love it. And Greg, can I ask you a question? You've done a lot of work with business owning clients in this area. How do your clients, if you can make a specific case or a vast generalization, how do your clients feel and react to this conversation?
Oh, they love it, especially the non-operating spouse who, even if they've solved the cash flow problem, meaning they're not worried about paying the bills anymore, the business past that, but the operating spouse does not feel the risk the same way. And the non-operating spouse is probably still, in the corner and they're not worried about paying bills. But when you start talking, they definitely like, well, what happens if, something happens to my spouse? I can't run this company, and how will we get paid, and how will I take care of the kids and all that kind of stuff. So they love it. And it's interesting how those conversations go. I have a client right now that started working with a year and a half ago. At that time, they thought they'd end up 2023 at 11 million. We ended up at 16.7. When we adjusted projections for 2024, he said 18. We're going to end up at 24. We went from 2.7 in profit last year to 6.1 this year. They've been in business for 4 years. He's a blue-collar guy who's been in this world for 30. The most he's ever made is $350,000, and now he's making millions, and we're chasing the infrastructure to catch up with his level of
so true, right?
Of revenue. So he doesn't feel like a guy who's making $6 million, right? He doesn't have that because he is like chicken with a head cut off right now. So all of this seems like monopoly money to them. And Like it's not really real. And as a lot of people, especially business owners who don't trust the market or they tried to DIY it and got some bad experience, it's a struggle to get him to separate wealth and give it to the wealth manager. You know, they've done some planning, but now we've got the very holistic plan that's getting ready to get put in place. I sat down with them and I'm like, because I had a client like this in the past who kept $1 million in cash. They made a lot of money. They only had $5 million liquid. They needed a lot more than that to maintain the cash flow that they pulled off of the business. But the wealth manager was choking on $1 million in cash. But for them, they like, that just is our sleep at night. As long as we have $1 million in cash in the bank, then we're confident to take other risks elsewhere. And so with this client, that we had that conversation. Like, what do you need to do to be able to start doing planning with your other advisors? Because we don't need all the multi-millions that are sitting inside of the business account to grow the business right now, you know? And for them, they have to put a big chunk of money just in savings for sleep at night, and then they're willing to act. So the owners, they really love it. They love a holistic plan. They love the fact that as advisors, we're coordinating with and without them. We're keeping them in the loop, but we're making sure that we're all on the same page of giving our feedback to this, tax and estate plan, that there's room for the other advisors' work, that people aren't just brought into a meeting where it's presented. And maybe the CPA was a great CPA, but hasn't seen some of these more advanced strategies, is then asked to comment on it, and he's seeing it for the first time, So, we coordinate all of that. And we tell the owners, we're going to coordinate all that. We're going to make sure everybody has their questions answered, puts their 2 cents in, and has a united front by the time it comes to you. And they're like, thank God. I don't have and I don't know the questions to ask anyway. I need to know that you guys ran it through the ringer and that this will help me get to where I want to go. And then I can pick and choose the components within that plan that I want to execute.
For the business owner, and you hear this back out of the market, is for your client, for the client, right? To know that the advisors are meeting without them getting a bill, right? The advisors are meeting off and to coordinate the advice that's being presented for selection and implementation by the client is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and it's important that we, as the business advisors, are in those meetings as well. We don't be in every meeting, but the business is the goose that's laying the golden eggs. The other advisors need to understand what the ultimate goals are. In other words, what's that freedom point value, that target sales price, what's our kind of roadmap to get there, because that has an impact on how fast we get there, what the valuation expectations are that could impact their planning. Most of these guys are so used to operating in silos, and most business owners aren't working with people like on this call who can take and strategically and proactively and predictably move a business from worth not what it needs to be to north of what it needs to be in a 3 to 5 year window.
Yes.
Most of these advisors who operate in silos are used to the 30-year grind. And so they may or may not step up to the plate with proper planning, because the business owners, unless they are motivated to do so, are not going to them and asking for it, because they don't know what they don't know. Until you connect the dots between what they want, the freedom, the cash flow, and the business planning that's going to make it happen way faster than they thought was possible. Just to give them choices doesn't mean they're going to sell, whatever. But now they see those as investments. Now it makes sense to separate wealth. Well, what if I give this to my kid? I said, well, if you don't separate any wealth from this, you're going to micromanage the shit out of your kid to make sure he keeps on paying you. And how fun will that be? Why don't we separate a whole bunch of money, because we can, and as we're building this business to an asset, then you could sell it to him, and he can't write you a check either, so you got to be the bank.
You're going to be the bank. Yes.
Yeah. If we don't give you a whole bunch of money and resources separate from your business, and then your kid takes over and you got to be the bank, you're just going to be working over their shoulder, micromanaging them. It's going to be the parent-child relationship. They're going to hate it. Thanksgivings are going to get ugly. It's just not fun.
Well, it's funny, Greg, because, and maybe we'll close this. I love this conversation. I'm glad we're recording it.
Larry's been raising his hand a bunch.
Okay, Larry, we're going to bring you in. Greg, let me please put the bow on that point. If anybody's wondering if the 3 dimensions of business growth are relevant to their client, Greg just described a client who cares. How much do you think that client who's gifting this business or transitioning this business to the next generation cares about dimension one, predictable profits and cash flow, and probably a bit about predictable, sustainable growth, because there's this ugly thing called inflation. So the dimensions, the fact that we've broken this into dimensions is incredibly relevant. Larry, jump up.
Greg, I'll jump in. Greg, I'm glad you used the word motivation, because when we use clarity alone and we're looking at the different business objectives, it might not motivate the business owner to take the action that we think they would want to take. But using the equity planner, looking at risk management and the way you describe those scenarios can be the entrance into the motivation for that business owner to take the action that we think they need to take. So I appreciate this today, that it helps me connect some of the dots. And I'll take it, I know, George, you teed it up that, it could be a threat to a wealth manager. And I think, Greg, you did a good job saying not necessarily. When you look at the marketing event for us can be to wealth managers. So we're helping them as well bring more value to their clients, and we could partner with them. So I look at it as an opportunity, because you started, George, with this being what is our collaboration opportunity using the tools. And I think it kind of all comes together.
Well, the give to get, we're still doing the giver's gain here, because the work that we do as business advisors, when you understand how the equity planner and the risk management pieces work together, and I'm telling you from experience that it does motivate. It's the connecting the business planning that we need to do to their personal goal, which I just use the word lifestyle, and I wrap that up in the cash flow that they want, the $1.2 million. That does motivate them to take action on these other planning things and it's coming from us. We don't have a dog in that fight. Like, as long as you can educate yourself a little bit in the fact that there's this different level of planning, you don't have to be an expert and be able to explain everything. But you could talk about the benefits of doing it. The owners will then want to go and do it. So what's the value to a COI giving you a business owner to talk to? We're going to get them to actually execute on all that planning that you've been talking to them. It's falling on deck.
Yes. Yeah,
You're going to get paid this stuff, and we're referring out to your COI, like I did with that wealth manager. Hey, they need a good tax and estate plan. I'm sure you got a guy. Well, the guy he brought in for whatever reason didn't want to do the work. And so then as a team behind the scenes, we shifted and we explained to the owners why. But he still got to, do the work, be in control of the relationship and where we go, with the business owner.
Yeah, that's important. That control of the relationship's important. The other thing you said, Greg, that is important is owner mindset. A lot of these owners in these small middle market, my son is a business banker for a large bank. He always tells me, I cannot get over, Dad, how many dollars in the millions some business owners have sitting in a non-interest bearing checking account or other account doing nothing, or how they're not maximizing credit card and it's sitting in a debit card account. And the reason is that although in one component of life, they took on risk, entrepreneurial, and grew a business, there's another component of life where they are very risk averse sometimes. And that's why you could literally see sometimes millions of dollars doing nothing.
Yeah. And you ask them, that's why I bring in the non-operating spouse. They're past usually the, are we paying the bills and what the hell's going on at work? There's not enough money. They're past that. But there is still very real risk and fear just underneath the surface that they've learned to deal with. And the non-operating spouse is usually not as risk-taking as the operating spouse who started the company or has grown this company. And so it's tough to fight. It's great when things are going great in the economy and your business, but when things go south and you really got to dig in, it's tough to fight a war on two fronts, meaning I got to deal with all the stuff at the office I have to deal with, and then I don't necessarily have the full support 100% of my spouse because they're freaking out because our personal world is not buttoned up to the level it should be, and they're very concerned if something were to happen to the business or to the operating spouse, me and the kids are screwed.
Yeah.
So just stacking some cash over there in a personal account. You want cash? No problem. You need the $1 million liquid like that other client to be the triggering event for you to be willing to do anything else. Awesome. Go do that. But yeah, you need to motivate them. The business doesn't, the clarity one all by itself doesn't always motivate the owner. You got to connect it to their personal goals, which is why the secret hack of the equity planner is the starting question. Instead of the income, it's what's the all-in cash flow lifestyle that you want with or without this business. And so that's however you're compensating yourself now, with perks, with distributions, with whatever. Or if that's not a motivating number, give me the number. And it's important to use the term lifestyle because you don't need to do a weekend workshop on vision. They're going to connect the dots in their head to, oh, if I got, $1.2 million a year coming in, or $500,000, the house I live in, the cars I drive, where my kids go to school, the kind of vacations we take, how much extra money I have in my flow for a rainy day or to contribute to my church or community or whatever else is important. The lifestyle automatically in their brain connects that. And that's important because once you show them how quickly with business owner math, you could bridge the gap of current value to value required for them to make work optional, because we work on the stuff that makes the multiples go up. So value can scale very quickly without revenue having to follow the same trajectory. That's when the light bulb goes off. And that's when they're like, oh shit, like I can grow a business to that value. Because before they were thinking that value equated to their revenue. Like if I have a business doing $10 million and it's only a couple million in profit and it's very owner dependent, it might be worth $4 million if someone's willing to pay me 2 times for it. Right. And they might know that. And then you tell them, oh, it needs to be worth $50 million in order for you to get what you want out of this. And they're doing the math that I have to grow from $10 million in revenue times 25. I guess because they already know it's only worth 2 million. So now they're doing that math on the revenue and they're going, shit, there's no way it's unbelievable. That's what actually makes it even more powerful, because now you educate them with the equity planner that, oh no, if we just tweak the work that we do, all those questions that you answered, mostly false or whatever, we raise them up a little bit, we could jump your multiple up to something in the middle. And look at that. Revenue grows at a normal pace, value gets to where it's got to get. That's when the light bulb goes off and they're willing to do the other planning. That also should be the motivator to work with you. It's the connecting of those dots.
Well, and what's interesting, Greg, and thank you, Greg and Larry, very much. What's interesting is that equity planner, you're right, creates that. I know how important it is to you, Larry. I know how effective you've been, Greg, out in the field, out in the market. That creates the emotional connection between everything we've just discussed and a real, that's something I really desire and need and must deliver for my family, my stake.
And the timeline that it can happen quick.
Yes. Hey guys, we're at the top of the hour. What a great conversation. Thank you so much. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Larry. Thanks everyone who attended. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to take this recording. We'll be able to, you can get the deck of the transcript, and we will create some client-facing and COI-facing talking points, and that whole package will be available to you. Just shoot us an email if you'd like to get that at either of these email addresses, and we will make sure it goes to you. If you've registered for this, it'll come out as well. All right? Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day. We're here to help with questions. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Greg.